is Lois. I was able to get in here without needing a whole big box. But I think it's because I found the perfect set of swatches for you in a single book. We won't limit ourselves to that, of course, but I have a feeling you're going to love what this book of swatches has to offer. So, how are you doing? I've never heard of that. Well, I'll have to look for that. I'm sure my husband would love to see a new movie. So how is Mr. Merritt taking it all in? So far, so good. I think we're in a good spot then. Well, let's take a look at some new materials. Let me just get a couple of things from my purse. Oh, yes. I love this purse, and I was so excited to break it out for spring. It's perfect for the transitional seasons because it has this wonderful wicker that's lighter weight than winter handbags, but this caramely front piece and handles and the edging here keep it in a slightly deeper tone, not too feminine or floral, and I just think it works great in the spring and the autumn. I can carry it like this, or I could just turn it around, carry it like that. It's very versatile. Anyway, I just got it at Stearns a couple of weeks ago, so I'm so excited to use it this spring and, of course, this fall. And they've got a nice selection of these wicker bags. I think most of them are made in Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you so much. Well, you'll have to check out Stearns and see what you think. all need just put my purse over here. Is that okay? There we go. So I see you have Interior Design magazine out. Have you had a chance to look through it in more detail? Is there anything you would like to show me in particular? Okay. Okay. Let's see. There, I see it. Okay, this one. And this one is, oh, this is the 3 Japanese 18th century panels against grass cloth. Japanese style is just blossoming right now. It's a nice mix between the idea of something traditional. Obviously, this art is not recent, but because Japanese architecture and design tend to have very clean and streamlined lines, kind of elegant simplicity. It works very well with a more modern environment here in America. So it's, well, if you're transitioning from a very traditional style of furnishings and upholstery, either from, say, American colonial to sort of that traditional Mediterranean look that has taken the 1950s by storm. Again, this is a good way to make that transition. You're not going to see any remnants of the old, but you will still enjoy that sense of that weighty sense of tradition in the art against a more modern design. So I don't know if you are specifically interested in Japanese art, like these 3 panels. Would you like to see something like that hanging on your walls? Or are you simply looking at this as more of an inspirational idea? Okay. Oh, right here. Okay. So this is a much larger Japanese piece. just remind myself. This is furniture of Scandinavian contemporary design in harmony with an oriental screen and armoire. And that really just took the words right out of my mouth. What I was just saying about the modern design that's coming to us from the Scandinavian countries, and that mixed with the Japanese style works very well together. So it seems to me that you really would like an art piece, among other things. Okay, that's good to know. Is there anything else in this magazine that you would like to show me? All right. Well, I've got lots more to show you. I'll just mark this place for easy reference. Who went to Washington, D.C. lately? Your sister. That's nice. It's a beautiful postcard. Okay. I'll just put this aside. All right. So let me get out your paperwork so I can make notes. Be looking at this book, Interior Design, A to Z. And there we go. Got some paint swatches. Okay, so we get to that point in our discussion. And I brought our two favorite Formica samples from last time. Again, if we want to match anything off of this think that's... Yes, that's all we need right now. All right, are you ready to begin? Every step of the way, I think, brings a new level of excitement to the project. Right. In addition to the new samples, I did bring what we looked at last time. Only because you expressed such a fondness for these fabrics. But for now, and based on all of our conversations, I have marked a few pages here of things that I'd like to show you. I've taken into account all the preferences that you've expressed, as well as the dreams. Remember, it's preferences and dreams that come together when we are redesigning a home. So this book is a dictionary of sorts with alphabetized words in the design industry. But I love this book for the examples, the very modern day examples that it gives us. This was just published last year. I realize you're trying to get away from the florals, but there's a little bit of everything in this book. So let's see. I think this is an excellent example of draperies in a rich, vibrant color that really stands out in the room. Of course, the color is picked up in the wall coverings here, but everything else is either in a neutral or another pop of color. And the drapes just really shine here. Based on what we discussed last time, I thought you might like to see that particular treatment. Keep that in mind. And let's see, next. Okay, so you're going to laugh when you see this. First of all, I wanted you to see the asymmetrical arrangement in this particular image. We've got a piece of Japanese art hanging here. So you must have said some things to me last time that stuck. So I think we're definitely on the same wavelength. I thought you would like to see this sofa here in particular because I know you mentioned that you liked the tufting in your current couch. But notice, if you look very carefully, you can see the texture and the sheen in this particular upholstery. And that's because it is a silk dupioni. So, exactly what we were talking about last time. And we have lots of options and upholstery appropriate options. This one, of course, is not. This has a drape appropriate for curtains, draperies. I know you like this. It doesn't mean we need to reupholster your couch at all or in a silk dupioni. But I think you can see in the photograph that the silk and the Japanese screen go very well together. So I'm not surprised to hear that you liked this as well as those photographs of Japanese art that you just showed me. All right. I think I skipped several pages here. Again, when we're getting into Mediterranean, Victorian, American colonial or Spanish colonial, things that you are wanting to get away from. So these are the pages that I'm skipping. Okay, so first of all, I'm only bringing up the color wheel because it appears on this particular page in the book again. This is an A to Z, and here we're in the C's. But I did want to show you this because it's going to, I think, help unlock some of the secrets of good design. So if you look here, we have a range of colors in the rainbow arranged in a circle. So it just keeps looping back on itself. So we've got red here, pure red. We have shocking pink, purple, periwinkle, one of my favorite colors. Kind of a standard blue here, turquoise, stable green here, lime, and what is this? Of course, yellow. With melon, orange, and bittersweet. Notice too that we have one shade lighter on the outer ring soft pink, not the more shocking pink. Light yellow, light green, light blue, light red, and so on. Now, here's what I want to display. Let me just read this to you. The most inexpensive asset in all of decorating, the color wheel. A rainbow in circular form, it's the basis of good color planning, and it shows the relationship of one color to another. It provides the clue to the 4 basic schemes described in the following pages. They are called by name monochromatic, analogous, complementary, and triadic. Now, let me just briefly explain what those mean before we turn the pages and look at the examples. So if we're looking at a monochromatic palette, then we might be looking at, again, a deeper blue and a lighter blue in the same room. Monochromatic means the same chroma or the same color, just different shades of it. And we could go deeper. We don't see that in this particular color wheel, but we can certainly go into a deeper blue, this blue, a lighter blue, even lighter. That would be a monochromatic palette. And I know I've seen a lot of, in particular, monochromatic palettes in the orange, light orange, medium orange, dark, and in the green palettes. Very popular right now. So that's monochromatic. Then we have, what was the next one that they listed? Analogous. This is very close to monochromatic, but with a little bit more depth and variety. Basically what we're looking at is analogous, 2 colors on the wheel that are side by side. So blue and turquoise. You can see how that's almost a monochromatic look, except the chroma here is slightly different. It has that little bit of green in it. So you could certainly do kind of a monochromatic analogous look if you used the blue and the turquoise and then the 2 lighter versions of that in several items in the room. You could do it with the melon and the orange and the lighter versions as well. So that's what analogous means. Taking the turquoise and the green side by side. In a child's room, the red and the shocking pink side by side. And then we have complementary. So imagine here you got your pizza pie, and here's one slice of the pie and it's turquoise, and you go across to the other opposite slice of the pie, and in this case that's bittersweet. This something between orange and red, and so turquoise and bittersweet would be complementary colors. Green, red, complementary colors. We use complementary colors all the time in all seasons. For example, Christmas, green and red. Easter, you might see yellow and purple. So anything on this wheel. Let's look at blue. Blue, across from blue is orange. Purple, across from that, yellow. So a purple and yellow scheme, a blue and orange scheme, red and green. This shocking pink and lime. Those are complementary colors. And then the last color scheme that we often work with in design is the triadic. And basically, a triad or a triangle, we're talking about 3. And so we're looking at 3 equidistant colors. And so if you look closely, you will see some numbers here. And that will allow you to quickly identify colors that are in a triad. So for example, if we look at the number 1, right here, we'll see a 1 with blue, a 1 with yellow, and a 1 with red. So red, yellow, and blue are a triad and are often used together in design, depending on the mood of a room. But remember, we're looking at example colors here that are a very deep chroma. So if you want something softer but still just as interesting, you can move into the lighter yellow, the lighter blue, and the lighter red, which is pink. So if we look at the number 2, let's see. So number 2, we've got purple, green, and orange. Right here. Purple, green, orange. Notice how they are equidistant from one another. It almost looks like a radioactive sign. And again, we can go into the lighter purple, a lighter green, a lighter orange for a much more subtle effect. So lots of triad possibilities as well. I'm not going to show you all of the examples, because we're just going to stick with the things that fit with the preferences and dreams that you've expressed. I find this particular image funny because of how she defined the style. So this is under H for hanging shelves. She says, hanging shelves, cliche of the contemporary decorating scene. These shelves, which serve as a catch-all for controlled clutter, may well go down in history as the hallmark of mid-20th century rooms. On them, books share space with souvenirs. Art objects play a part as well as plants. They are the focal point of many modern rooms. Now, admittedly, these are a bit cluttered in this particular image, but she does go on later in the book to illustrate in my opinion, some hanging shelves that are done a little bit more tastefully, but certainly in a very modern way. I think you might appreciate this. In this particular image, let me read. Modern. This is a style of decorating peculiar to the mid-20th century. It does not exclude pieces from the past, but manages to give old things a new look by placing them in proximity to more modern designs and arrangements, as in this corner conversation area where antique stools cluster around a contemporary coffee table. This forthright mixing of periods is very characteristic of modern design. So you can see here the antique stools and the contemporary coffee table. Just as a side note, I think this is a very good example of a monochromatic room. Got the deeper chroma and then the lighter shades of the same color. Gives a very cohesive and rich look to a room. I thought you might like to look at some contemporary lamps as a possibility. And these lamps are, the shades are made of paper. Depending on the style, you will get something that's a bit reminiscent of Japanese style, unless you get into some of the wilder designs right here. Something to keep in mind. A new lamp can change the whole personality of a room. Okay, so let's look at this room. Isn't that just stunning? The reason I think it's so beautiful but just perfect for our purposes is this beautiful grass cloth as a wall treatment. And we keep stumbling upon that, don't we? In the images that you like. When I saw this, I thought, she's got to see this in color. Just beautiful. We have some complementary colors working here. But I do know that you are leaning more into an orange or green palette. So you don't need to necessarily look at the blue per se, but just the overall design. I want you to notice too that we've got some Japanese art. Once again, goes very well with grass cloth. And notice that the image here is off center. It's not hanging in the middle of the sofa. Again, that's a very modern look. Not as traditional as something that's very symmetrical. So something to keep in mind when we are actually arranging things. And I think I've got 2 more things to show you. Okay, so 2 things on this page. One is this buffet, again, with a piece of art on the side, asymmetrical. And the other is this Eurosarinen chair that is a very modern, it's very modern in terms of its style, but also its construction. It's constructed out of molded plywood, so the seat is all one piece of wood. It's amazing. And then the metal legs are attached. And then the upholstery makes this a very cozy lounge chair. Something to consider in terms of bringing a modern piece in with some of your existing traditional pieces. This is just kind of a little illustration of what we were talking about with regard to symmetry. This is a very traditional room with the art centered on the sofa. You see it again here, with this piece centered on the sofa. And that might be a look that you want to get away from if you want to update your design. So that's all I have to show you in this book. But what I would like to know is, does that clarify anything for you in terms of what you are looking for? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me just jot that down. crafted and put together in different palettes, different patterns, solids, prints, stripes, geometrics. And you can see how these things can go together in different ways. Okay? So, I know that this first fabric here doesn't fit with your color scheme, but it does have a bit of a grass cloth effect. You're going to see this again in different colorways. And you can see how they've arranged this so that you could bring in the blue or the yellow and make those colors pop a little bit more from the patterned piece. This is called Chaos. All right. Now, I immediately thought of you when I saw this. It has those warm gold, green, olive tones that you like. But it introduces a complementary color. It's not something we've talked about, but I thought you would like to see. Again, we're not talking about a deep blue or a deep turquoise, but something that's a bit more muted. And I think it also gives you the effect of a Japanese landscape of sorts. Maybe with some ocean elements. It's a beautiful color scheme. And you can see here this solid. The color is called Cardinal. And this is called Fascinate. And these two could work very well together. So if this were, say, in a drapery, and this in either an upholstery or in another drapery, we talked last time about having something a little bit more, with a little bit more personality in the dining room. You could certainly do that here. And then have this as your drapery in the living room or something like that. You can see and hear the texture. In this one, it's almost like a bark cloth, but it's not. It's a very richly designed fabric. This is not simply printed, it's woven. And the fibers are of different thickness. It creates almost a painting that you can feel instead of look at. Love this one. into something I'm sure you're not going to care for. A little bit more traditional. This at least gives us a good example of how modern design can work with furnishings that you already have. So this is a very geometric, very modern, abstract design, certainly not in your color scheme. And this is a very traditional treatment, but look at how they share color schemes. You could put this in one room, this in the neighboring room, or both in the same. Maybe this could be on the couch using the drapes. And because they share the same color scheme, they're going to look very nice together. But the contrast in style is going to breathe a little bit of life into the room. It's what's going to make it modern. So we'll see examples of this as we go on. Now here we have another slightly geometric, almost houndstooth fabric in some more muted tones. And again, this is woven in a way that each of these colors is raised at a different level. The lightest color is the tightest weave. I think this color right here seems to have the most pile or heft to it. This one here has a looser pile. It's very soft like velvet. This kind of upholstery can work very well with a sofa. And you can see this could be one of the neutrals that goes with that in the room. Now we've come back to that same geometric, but we're looking at something that might be appropriate for a girl's room, game room, or even a kitchen. This one. This design is called Circulate. Dynamo is the color scheme. Now we've got a deep olive green. Feel that one. It's not quite a velvet, but sure feels like one, doesn't it? This color is called Sprig. Nice, natural, neutral. And this is that same color, or the same fabric that we encountered on the yes, it was our second fabric, Cardinal. I think this fabric, regardless of the color, is a very strong contender for what you're looking for in at least one of your drapery treatments. Now we have that same, what's this, Chaos? Yes. Pattern in a different colorway. Again, not your colorway. Now look, here we have a fascinate again. And instead of the blue here, we've got the orange. So you might be more interested in this one. And if you look at what comes next, you'll see that we've got an orange and a rust color that could coordinate very nicely with that. You could have a set of drapes in this, and then we could have a sofa reupholstered in this, another set of drapes in this. And that would be very unique, but also coordinated with color in a way that's not too modern. I think you probably want to take modern design only so far if you're wanting to integrate some of your existing furnishings and design. Now here we have that same geometric style, but you can see that these two solids work with it as well. If, for example, you decided you wanted to redesign the TV room right next to the kitchen, you might decide that this has a kind of fun personality to it that would work nicely with the overall color scheme in neighboring rooms. Here again we have that very traditional fabric, mixing it with something modern in a different colorway. But I'm going to skip these if they're not in our color palette, are they? Isn't that beautiful fabric, but a very different colorway? It's going to create a very different mood. There's that shocking pink we talked about. Okay, and then we have the Fascinate in a much more subtle colorway with a very muted blue and the olive tones and the beige and the gray. So you could get a little bit of blue in your design if you wanted to go that route with something much more muted. Now here we've got some solids that you might want to consider. Just a moment. Just looking for my fuller brush. Pardon me, I should have looked at these before I left. And shears here are creating the problem. I just don't want you to think that those little specks are part of the fabric. Okay. That should do it. This can just go in my purse. All right. I'll leave this out in case we encounter any other problems. So as I was saying, this particular neutral color, it's sort of a gray, green, olive green, gray, brown, or tan maybe. I'm not sure how to describe it. The color is Dove, and this is that cardinal fabric that we were talking about earlier. Again, you can see that it goes very well with this abstract design. And you can see that it goes well with the geometric design behind it. Now this is the one that I wanted to show you. I think the others were not even close to your color palette. But this, while it does include the turquoise, it is reminiscent of grass cloth, and it could give you that look if you wanted to go with this in your living room draperies. And went with simple paint on your walls. It certainly would be less expensive than grass cloth as a wall treatment. But this is just, I mean, it's got that sheen to it that is reminiscent of silk du peony. The look of grass cloth, beautiful color scheme. And the blue is not too bright, but it's just enough to offset these deeper browns, tans, and olives. So it doesn't weigh down the room too much. Isn't that beautiful? So this is our friend Chaos. Let's see what the color is. Pacific Blue. Appropriate name, I think, for this colorway if you are interested in a Japanese influenced design. Again, you can see how something so modern like this can actually work quite well with something quite traditional like that. And then we have the geometric again. I'm sure this is cardinal. It's a gorgeous kind of between a dark brown and a light brown, and it has to do with the sheen on it. Can you see that? It's like a velvet or a velour. That is called deep brown. So, no fancy names there. But again, just look at how the light, look at how the light catches it in different ways and almost raises the chroma or the shade. Beautiful color. That would make an absolutely gorgeous sofa upholstery. And it's so smooth. And if you come back to this one, you can see how elegant that would be. Very elegant, truly modern. And then, let's see. You could do a neutral wall color. This is called oyster white. Right here it's not as white as our Formica sample. So it's much more of a muted neutral. And if that were your wall color, picking up some of the lighter threads here in the draperies and against this beautiful, almost chocolate color. I wouldn't say it's too chocolatey because there's no red in this brown. It's a much more neutral, deep brown. I like that. So it's quite a bit different from what we were looking at here. In terms of color scheme. And yet, it has a very similar mood and overall effect. Very elegant, yet modern and new. Very rich fabrics, silk, bark cloth, something like grass cloth. You can also see that the Formica samples that you liked last time that work so well with these fabrics here. It's just beautiful, isn't it? And you could, let's see, just looking for another neutral wall color. This one is Pongy, and the next one is Dove and Mercury. So these three here. Are a little bit darker than the one we were looking at. So if you don't want a super high contrast between your wall color, your draperies, your sofa, you could go with a slightly darker neutral on the walls. Still very light. It's going to keep the room light enough to be the kind of room you want to be in during the day, especially. And all of these will also go with the neighboring kitchen. So if you're in this room looking into the kitchen and you catch a glimpse of the counters, the cabinets. So it's not anything that I would call overly coordinated, because we're dealing with a lot of analogous colors here. They're sort of in the same family, but they're not exact matches. And that's also a very modern way to approach home design. You like that? Well, let me jot these down as options. So we have paint chips 15, which is Mercury, 7, which is Dove, and 24, which is Ponky. Okay. And let's see. We were looking at Chaos in Pacific Blue. As a possible drapery fabric. And this was Cardinal, and this is deep brown. as a possible sofa upholstery. Okay. Just a couple other fabrics to finish this off today. This is getting harder to hold. This, I believe, has maybe a little too analogous, not enough contrast. But for someone looking for something much softer, you can see how that would work with the two solids here. And likewise with this version of Chaos, this could be certainly an option for your draperies if you ultimately do not want to introduce any blue into the color scheme, in which case, see the difference? Got that one, and then this one. It reads a bit lighter, even though it does have some of that deep brown. It's much closer to what grass cloth looks like. And let's see how it plays in the light. Not as much play, but that's because it doesn't have that blue that's going to catch the light. But you recall I was showing you that very modern Eero Saarinen chair in the book. And if you went with a drapery like this, that's much more neutral, with that deep brown sofa, you could bring in a pop of color, a soft orange, for example, in a new Eero Saarinen chair. So lots of different ways to approach bringing color and balance into a modern living space. But either way, this one or the one with the blue, I think would give you that Japanese influence that you're looking for. This one is, of course, it's Chaos, but this one is called Linen. What do you think about that? Okay. And the last couple, again in this color scheme. Now this, let me show you here. This is a lighter neutral that could also work for a sofa very nicely if you didn't want to use the deep brown. This one is called it's called Sand. Now I want you to pay attention here, because remember I said that deep brown was almost like a chocolate brown, but it didn't have any red in it. And in this last bit, the samples here, you're going to see a little bit more of a reddish brown. Reddish tones, warmer tones. So that's something to keep in mind. Unless you're doing something that is analogous, where you have a warm tone and a cool tone side by side. That could be, say, a yellow and a green. You want to keep in mind that your neutrals need to stick with the warmth or coolness of your other fabrics. So here we have chaos in a much warmer palette. Yes, I remember that. Okay. This is, I think, very formal, and maybe not exactly what you're looking for. Kind of a greenish gray. Olive greens and grays in this tone. And then we get into some blacks, faded blacks. These can be some very dramatic looks for a dining room. Again, if you wanted to keep with a more traditional look in the dining room and use something like this. And then mixing it with the grass cloth look in the neighboring room. But this gives you a sense of the overall, you're just looking at swatches. So if you want to get a sense of the overall size of the print and how much of different colors would be visible. If you had an entire wall or an entire set of draperies made out of these fabrics, then you can get a sense from these images. In this one, let's see, civic blue, chaos, and yes. I think that's up here in the front. Yeah, here it is. Olive greens, turquoise, beige, yellows. It's a very serene design. That is called Fascinate. That design, that color scheme is Daybreak. It's a great name for it. course, the one with the pop of orange. You know, if you still wanted to go this route. Is that it? Yes. Right there. The sheen is just lovely, isn't it? Of course, you have to imagine that it is gathered into pinch pleats. Now, I can't gather it this way because of the paper backing, but I could do it this way. So you can get a better sense. There we go. That's a decent looking pinch plate, if I have to say so myself. Okay, now take a look. See how that works? It's quite a beautiful fabric. Alright, well, that's all I have for you today. Do we need to bring Mr. Merritt into the conversation at any point? Not yet, okay. Alright. Well, I have jotted down the details, and my next task is to begin to map out a plan for each of the rooms, including select furniture pieces. I do know that you do not want to replace all of your furniture. But what we discussed, this idea of bringing in a modern piece to mix with some of your existing traditional pieces, I can put together a board, sort of a visual board, for you to see fabrics, wall colors, images of pieces of furniture, things that mimic what you already have, as well as pictures of new pieces of furniture to give you an overall look. Then you can start to get closer to some final decisions about how these rooms are going to interact with one another, and whether or not you want to tie in the color schemes more closely or only tangentially. Okay. All right. Well, let me just pack up, and I will be out of your way. Yes, we did. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Do you have plans for summer vacation? Oh, Florida sounds nice. My husband and I like to take the kids to Curie Beach most every summer. It's just a very small, family-oriented beach in North Carolina. And we always get a little beach cottage right on the sand. And one of the things I like to do with my kids is make sand candles. Have you ever done that? First you have to collect seashells. And I'm an avid collector. So my kids and I collect the seashells. My husband is usually on the beach under the umbrella, relaxing. And then we come back and dig sort of a bowl shape in the sand. And it has to be wet sand, the kind that you use for sand castles. So you kind of press and mold until you have a nice shape. It could be oval or round or square, whatever you like. And when it's just right, then you take your fingers and you poke usually 4 places for the legs. If it's round, sometimes we'll do kind of a triangle of 3 legs. And then I always bring an old Folgers can to the beach with us, and some crayons and paraffin. We'll build a little fire on the beach. It doesn't have to be big, but the can filled with the paraffin, let that melt, and then we'll shave some of the crayon colors into that and stir it around, and it'll create these beautiful sort of rainbow colors and almost like tie-dye. And then we pour that into the mold, the sand mold. Oh, I forgot. First we have to line the bowl with the shells. It's important to remember to put the pretty side of the shell against the sand, and then the scoop part of the shell is visible in the mold. And that way, once you pour the paraffin in and it dries, those shells are going to stick to the outside of it. And then we'll put a wick in there and we'll just let it cool. And when it's cool, it's done. You just stick your hand in the sand and lift it out and dust off some of the sand. We never dust off all of the sand because we kind of like that. And then we bring those back with us and use them throughout the year. We have sand candles all over our house. Anyway, I know my children are making wonderful memories. I know I am too. right, Miss Lois. I hope you enjoy your vacation next week. Please give me a call when you get back, and we'll go ahead and set up your next appointment. I don't really want to do that before your vacation. I know things can get a little crazy. Okay? All right. And please let Mr. Merritt know that I said hello.